All right, welcome back to another edition of We Rise Fighting Labor podcast. We bring you today's labor news, history, and analysis from the U.S. and around the world. This is a podcast you listen to with your fellow workers organizing on the shop floor. This is a podcast you listen to before walking into your union meeting. As always, I'm Rick Urrutia, here with my co-host, Brian Pfeiffer. Now, this week, we bring you news about the Teamsters, the United Auto Workers, the Republican National Convention, the SAG AFTRA strike, and Starbucks workers. We also revisit the wild world of a strike would cost the economy X billion dollars per day. You'll see what I'm talking about as soon as we get to the news segment. In the meantime, it is my pleasure to pass the mic over to Brian so he can introduce today's music. Take it away, Brian.
Good day, listeners. We are starting today with the poem Still I Rise by Dr. Maya Angelou. As we just saw in Alabama, the self-defense of Black workers against racists attacking them on the docks, among many other activities taking place across this country. Union struggles, Black workers and brown workers are taking the lead, and we were inspired and always have been inspired by Dr. Maya Angelou, a worker herself for decades before she passed. And this poem, we feel, represents the struggles on the show today. And it's called Still I Rise. And we honor Dr. Maya Angelou and all the Black freedom fighters out there. It is Black August this month, which is a month that represents the major, massive contributions worldwide from Africa and the diaspora all over the world, including right now in the United States. And Dr. Angelou represented that her entire life, contributing, beginning in Ghana, traveling to Ghana, working with Malcolm X, supporting unions, and much, much more. So today, let's honor Dr. Maya Angelou.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, wow. There I go.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Today is Sunday, August 13th. This is We Rise Fighting Labor podcast. And in preparation for today's show, just reading some of the news articles on labor and unions out there, I came across an article that really caught my attention. The article is titled, "What is a Strike?" And it's published on nerdwallet.com. All right. And speaking to the article itself, honestly, it's not a bad article. Gives you a lot of practical information. But there's one paragraph that caught my attention, and it was a paragraph that was commenting on the Teamster struggle at UPS. And the paragraph reads as follows: a strike would have disrupted package delivery on a massive scale, wreaking havoc on businesses and the economy. According to one estimate by the Anderson Economic Group, a consulting firm, a 10-day UPS strike could have cost the company more than $800 million. The wider economic impact could have reached $7 billion. Now, for those of you who've been listening to our show for a hot minute, you'll remember how around this time last year, the Association of the Association of American Railroads was saying that a railway strike would, quote unquote, cost the economy $2 billion per day. And my response on that was twofold, or our response, my response, however you may want to think about it, was twofold. One response was to ask, what does that even mean? Or what does that mean exactly? So I went to the Association of American Railroads website, and I found a research study that provided this $2 billion per day figure. I read the document along with the research methodology, and the methodology is what tells us, how a study or a document arrives at its findings, how it arrives at its claims, how it arrives at its conclusions. All right. So that's what I read was the document itself along with the methodology. And the methodology tells us what numbers they used, why, what math was applied, stuff like that. So I read those two things, and after analyzing the document in its entirety, I reported on how bogus and nonsensical the $2 billion per day figure was. And my second response to the $2 billion per day figure was to take them at face value and then turn around and say, oh, $2 billion per day. Well, I guess that's what the labor of those railway workers is worth. And if you take it in another direction and you continue to take it seriously, you could say something like, if a strike would cost the economy $2 billion per day, why don't the railroad company owners avert that very costly strike by giving into the demands of the railroad workers? All they're asking for is sick days. They needed sick days. All the railway companies have been very profitable, and the cost of sick days for 110,000 workers is a lot less than this $2 billion per day figure. That's assuming we take the number seriously, right? And in pointing out that contradiction and contradictions like that, we highlight the irrationality of capitalism, of CEOs, of shareholders, this very system. So, these numbers are really interesting to me. So that caught my attention. So back to that article. This article cites a firm called Anderson Economic Group, and saying that a 10-day UPS strike would have cost the company more than $800 million, and that the wider economic impact would have reached $7 billion. And that's a big claim. So I went to the Anderson Economic Group's website to find the document that produced these $800 million and $7 billion figures. And in the section of the methodology for this study, the author simply states the following, and this is quote unquote: the firm's consultants followed the same proven accurate methodology used to estimate impacts from the 2019 UAW strike, the threatened 2022 rail union strike, 2 West Coast port shutdowns, the 2003 East Coast electrical blackout, the 2022 Turkey, Syria earthquake, and other significant events in the firm's 27-year history. So they say that, but they don't actually offer a methodology. They just tell you that it's the same proven accurate methodology as before. Okay. So I went to those previous documents to see if I could find this methodology. I'm on a quest here. So I went to those previous documents to see if I could find this methodology, which you can apparently apply to any old strike, like some cookie cutter methodology, and come up with numbers worth releasing to the media. So I went back to the firm's document on the railroad strike to see if I could find the same proven and accurate methodology, and still nothing. In place of a methodology, they had a link to a book on Amazon. And that's when I realized I've been here before. I was looking at this stuff in late last year when we were following the railroad strike. So in place of a methodology for their work, they have a link to a book on Amazon. And the book was written 20 years ago, and it's called Business Economics and Finance with MATLAB, GIS, and Simulation Models. Patrick Anderson is the author of the book, as well as the CEO of Anderson Economic Group, the group that put together the 800 million and $7 billion figures. Now, the link doesn't give us the methodology. This only tells us that Patrick Anderson wrote a book 20 years ago, and it's available on Amazon, and it has 1.5 stars. So it's not even a zinger. But seriously, Pat, where's your methodology? Now, the moral of the story is this. We're seeing more and more strike activity in the US. The capitalist media will continue to publish bogus numbers like these. We can tear those numbers apart by simply looking up their bogus methodologies of these studies, or we can take those numbers seriously, flip the fear-mongering on its head, and point out that it's more cost-effective to meet the demands of the striking workers, but capitalism isn't having it. So these numbers always come from somewhere and someone, and you can go to that somewhere or someone, look at whatever study they put together, and any respectable study will have a methodology included. Otherwise, you just got something like Patrick Anderson, who is really a paid fearmonger and sensationalist, who can't provide a methodology to his claims, but he can provide a link to his 20-year-old book on Amazon that has 1.5 stars out of a possible 5 stars. And, you know, during these strikes and other workers' struggles, the media takes these studies and they run with it. So it's important for us to look at the numbers that we're being presented with. And I just want to encourage our listeners to check out where those numbers come from. And if you actually go with it and you find something interesting, please DM us, send it to us, because we're interested in that sort of thing. But just wanted to offer a critical eye on this sort of thing for our listeners, because strike activity is increasing and we just want to keep the analysis sharp over here. So up next, we have Brian with updates from the RNC. What's going on with the RNC, Brian?
All right, Rick, great report. I'm reporting here on the protests that will be happening against the RNC. For listeners, a little background, the Republican National Convention has decided to have as their site for the convention July 15th to the 18th, 2024 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the presidential debate for the candidates running for office for president will be August 23rd, 2023 in Milwaukee. Unions have called for a protest beginning at 3 p.m. in downtown Milwaukee. And the information, there will be a march and a rally. And Wednesday, August 23rd, it'll be from 3 to 7 p.m. Union members and community supporters are gathering at 1037, that's 1037 West McKinley Avenue. And there will also be a carpool from Madison, and that'll meet at 33 Nob Hill Road at 1 p.m. and travel to Milwaukee. The protest in Milwaukee, again, will take place 3 to 7 on August 23rd. That's a Wednesday. Union members will be protesting the vicious union busting and anti-LGBTQ attacks, as well as anti-women attacks and a full-scale austerity assault, as well as other issues that have happened upon poor and working people by the people that will be attending the presidential debate. And they range from Ron DeSantis, Scott Walker, the former governor of Wisconsin, from 11 to 18, He is now the director of the Young Americans Foundation, and he's making $800,000 a year, and they co-sponsored this debate. So everybody in the building there that will be attending this debate is an absolute ironclad opponent of poor and working people in the United States and internationally. So the unions aren't taking this laying down. There will be a mass protest out there, and then the coalition to march on the RNC, which is a people's coalition, will be having protests at 7 o'clock as well. So that afternoon and evening, there will be a variety of different activities for poor and working people, union members, community members to engage in. And more information is available at the SEIU Wisconsin, at the Wisconsin AFL-CIO. The Wisconsin Bailout the People movement has information on this, as well as background information on what the Young Americans Foundation is and the right-wing backers, the Bradley Foundation, etc. At Wisconsin Bailout the People movement to find out who the players are. And also folks can find out more information at the Coalition March on the RNC Facebook page as well. So it's going to be a hell of a day there, August 23rd. We're not backing down. We're not going to allow these vultures to continue to use Wisconsin as a laboratory for vicious racist austerity. And we'll be fighting back on August 23rd in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And We Rise Fighting will be on the ground reporting on those developments taking place on the ground that day. All right, Rick, next up is UAW, United Auto Workers. What's going on?
All right, so here's what's up. So again, in preparation for today's show, looking at the news, looking to see what's out there, what's happening, and I came across an article in Fortune magazine, and Brian and I were reading the headline together and just taken aback by this a little bit. The headline reads as follows: "The summer of strikes could spread to the big three automakers as the UAW sits on $825 billion in strike pay. It's up to Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis." Now, we were taken aback by this because of the claim that the United Auto Workers have $825 billion in strike pay, which is astronomical, which would be astronomical, I should say, but is nothing more than a typo. A serious typo at that. As Brian mentioned before we got on the show, like, what kind of copy editor? I mean, the difference between that B and that M in million and billion, I mean, 825 billion, that's what the military spends on its budget every year. Yeah, no, the UAW doesn't have $825 billion. And it's worked out in the body of the article. You know, they bring it down to millions, but come on, man. Fortune magazine, you would think. All right, and here's the body of the magazine of the article. And again, reading the article isn't an endorsement of Fortune magazine and its analysis. It's just keeping us current on some of the news. So here we go. The United Auto Workers Union, which represents nearly 150,000 employees of companies that manufacture U.S.-made vehicles, kicked off in mid-July 2023 the labor negotiations it undergoes every 4 years with the three main unionized automakers. It's not clear that the UAW will agree upon a new contract with Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, the automaker that manufactures Chrysler and 13 other vehicle brands, by their impending deadline. The contracts, I should say, expire at 11:59 p.m. September 14th. So let's take note of that. Until September 14th, UAW has a contract with the big three auto workers. We will continue to keep you updated on that. The article continues, though. The union's leaders skip the traditional handshake ceremonies it usually holds with these automakers, which are often called the Big Three or Detroit Three. The union instead held grassroots photo ops. UAW leaders greeted rank-and-file members at one Ford, one GM, and one Stellantis factory. The UAW's newly elected president, Shawn Fain, frequently denounces corporate greed and has proclaimed the union's willingness to go on strike. In the past, the union has held strikes against one automaker at a time, most recently in 2019 against GM. That could change this time. The big three is our strike target, Fain has said. And whether or not there's a strike, it's up to Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. That was a quote from Shawn Fain. The UAW has said that it has more than $825 million in its strike fund to help workers make do without pay should they walk off the job. Fain has declared that the union will no longer maintain that somewhat cozy relationship with the big three that led to major concessions in the past. Many of the union's other new leaders are also affiliated with the UAW's Unite All Workers for Democracy caucus, which launched a successful campaign to require the direct election of the union's top officials in 2022, with runoff elections held in 2023. But the strike could cost GM considerably more. For the year, GM said the strike could cost $3.6 billion. There's another number, $3.6 billion. Fortune magazine is telling me that it's coming from GM. I went to the GM investors website to look for more information on how they came up with that $3.6 billion figure. And I could find neither the document nor evidence of this claim. This is the sort of thing that I like to look into. So if I find something, I will update it on the show. But, this is just a way of saying careful with those numbers. Those numbers are all too easily fabricated and an attempt to fearmonger workers in the midst of direct action. So, up next with more news from the Teamsters, what's going on with Local 662, Brian?
All right, Rick. Thank you. So, coming up next is the Teamsters 662. That's Local 662. That's in northeastern Wisconsin and northern Wisconsin. And they've been on strike, as we reported on the show, in the Pier, which is just south of Green Bay, at New Dairy Milk Select. And those workers there have been on strike for over a month now. And their majority demands are health care, where the company refuses to put them into the Teamsters health plan. And the company's health plan is inferior. So that strike is over that. And of course, other issues. And then there's another strike by 662 happening in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, which is about 2 to 3 hours west of Green Bay, on the western side of Wisconsin. And that strike is at Leinenkugel's Molson Coors. And they've been out for over a month as well, about healthcare issues and also wage issues, among other things. So the strike has been getting a lot of support from labor and community members across the country. There has been a boycott called against Leinenkugel's, Molson Coors, and Chippewa Falls. And handbilling is going on across the country by Teamsters all over, because Taco Bell serves and uses the sour cream that is made by the workers in the Pier at New Dairy Milk Select. So the workers there make the sour cream for that company, Taco Bell. So labor and community support continues to be strong as both of these strikes enter their second month. But of course, they still need a lot of support. Being on strike for over a month is a big deal. And of course, these workers have loved ones and families to support. So supporters can contribute to the strike fund, join the picket lines from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. Dropping water and snacks at the picket lines is greatly appreciated. And if you go to the picket lines, bring some signs from your union or community organization that says we support the Teamsters. Take photos with them and share that on social media, as well as the other videos and photos that are on the Teamster 662 page. Please share those as well with the asks that the union is putting out there. And social media is a big, really important item. And there's a variety of different videos and photos that can be shared from the 662 Facebook page, as well as much information on the website of 662 as well. So we send them again solidarity, and We Rise Fighting has been on the picket line in the Pier. It was a great experience for those of you who have been to a picket line before. It's a wonderful experience. The workers will welcome you. Of course, if you're a union supporter, no scabs are allowed on the picket line. That's right, Rick. We only have labor community union supporters that are welcome there, and we will continue to report on our fellow workers' strike as it continues. So we're going to continue here with some UPS and Teamster strike news with Rick.
Yeah, the UPS news is real quick. Teamsters are still checking out the tentative agreement and have until August 22nd to look at that tentative agreement and either ratify it or vote it down. So no big news updates on the Teamsters and UPS, but I did go to the Teamsters website to check out to see if they had any press releases. And something did catch my attention. It's a press release from August 10th, and it reads as follows. The Brotherhood of Electrical Engineers and Trainmen, or BLET, of the Teamsters Rail Conference announced in August a tentative system-wide agreement with the BNSF Railway that will substantially improve the lives of BLET members. The tentative agreement includes up to eight paid sick days and grants access to scheduled time off. I thank the BLET's general chairman and general chairman at BNSF for negotiating this tentative contract designed to improve the quality of life for locomotive engineers, said BLET National President Eddie Hall. The breakthrough agreement comes after several months of negotiations. The agreement will allow for more predictable scheduling and let engineers take paid sick leave without any penalty. The agreement introduces work rest options that can be implemented in every pool. Locomotive engineers will have the opportunity to earn an quote unquote earned day off, unquote ED or EDU every quarter. About 7,500 BLET members at BNSF will receive detailed information about the tentative agreement. A ratification vote is scheduled for September. So this is, again, a Teamster press release just letting us know that these 7,500 members of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen finally got some sick days. What I noted in this press release is the agreement will allow for more predictable scheduling and let engineers take paid sick leave without any penalty. I mean, just that very language, just the idea that sick leave will result in penalty. Like, what the hell kind of capitalist nightmare are we living in?
Right.
That's all. That I just wanted to highlight that one line because that did catch my attention and needed to get that out.
Tell the truth, Rick. Say it again. Tell the truth.
Yeah. So up next we got Brian from some news with some news from Madison. What's going on in Madison, Brian?
All right, we're here in Madison, Wisconsin. Got our Re-Rise Fighting friends here and reporting in on the Madison Sourdough United Workers contract campaign. They've been negotiating with their employer, Madison Sourdough United Workers, and they say that there's been a bit challenges where the company is not negotiating in good faith, according to some of the workers. So they are asking for support. Yesterday, August 12th in Madison, the workers made buttons at Willie Park and gave union information to the community about their contract campaign. They are affiliated with the UFCW, United Food and Commercial Workers, about 40 workers there organizing. And there's a strike fund at their Facebook page. Supporters can contribute to that. And the workers have also asked supporters to circulate the union's appeals and information on social media. And also in Madison, just real quick, plug out there for the OPEIU, Local 39, which we've reported on many times here at We Rise Fighting, are still engaged in their contract campaign as well. And you can go to their Facebook page for more information and other social media. And both of these units here, the Madison Sourdough United Workers and OPEIU, are supporting each other, of course, in great acts of solidarity to help each union here, the UFCW and OPEIU, win a just contract. All right, we're going to talk now about our friends and fellow workers waging a titanic battle, and that's, of course, the actors and writers all over the country on strike. Rick.
All right, among those, of course, is the SAG AFTRA strike in California. And, I was looking for updates on this, really, honestly, last minute, right? Wanted to get a little bit of information on this for today's show. And so I jumped on the news and I noticed that most of the articles out there talk about this strike in the context of how it affects, the availability of some people's favorite shows. So I didn't, after a quick glance, really find anything all too interesting in the mainstream media. And so I went to the SAG AFTRA website itself to look for any updates, any press releases, and I found something from August 9th. And the article is coming as an update from the SAG AFTRA president and chief negotiator. And it reads as follows. This week marks the fourth week of our TV/theatrical/streaming strike. We are living in a historic hour as we fight to achieve a seminal contract, the likes of which we haven't seen in over 60 years. It was 1960 when we last went on strike alongside the WGA and achieved pension and health plans and residuals. Our futures depend on not accepting anything less transformative in this negotiation. With the advent of subscription and advertising-sponsored streaming video on demand and AI, once again, we must stand strong in solidarity and demand an equitable contract that reflects the value of our work in those new business models and protects our members from digital exploitation. When we called the strike, authorized by you, our members, with 98% approval, we did so knowing that we had done everything possible to avoid it, including extending negotiations for 12 days, the longest in our union's history. The AMPTP, the organization that bargains on behalf of the studios, networks, and streamers, refused to negotiate with us fairly and have not contacted us to resume talks. We find ourselves on the front lines of a global labor movement. We are not alone. There are millions of workers across the nation and around the world fighting similar battles against corporate greed who are standing in solidarity with us. It is clear from your show of force on the picket lines, your social media posts, and the many interviews we have seen that our cause is righteous. Your determination will carry us to victory. A key element in our strike strategy is our interim agreement, which has been granted to certain vetted and truly independent productions. Along with the many other non-struck contracts our members can currently work, these agreements give journeyman performers and crew the opportunity to pay their bills and put food on the table by working on these indie projects which are not only agreeing to all the terms in our last offer to the AMPTP, but all the righteous proposals our members deserve that the studios rejected. Our interim agreements are quite literally the opposite of quote-unquote waivers. There are no passes, exceptions, or exemptions being given to anyone. Productions must agree to all our terms or the work is struck. These agreements are also designed to undermine the production slates and timing of the AMPTP companies and ensure that they come back to the table. Until they do, they will not be able to distribute content made under our interim agreement without paying our members in those projects higher residuals and revenue share. This approach maintains our strength, solidarity, and upper hand with the AMPTP until they yield to our deal. These interim agreements demonstrate that the terms we propose to the AMPTP are not unquote-unquote unrealistic. They are fair. And if these independent productions are able to agree to them, then these billion and trillion dollar companies should be able to as well. From Los Angeles to New York and all of the locals across the country, we want to thank you for showing your solidarity over the past 4 weeks. And to the strike captains leading the pickets every day, you are truly rock stars. Be sure to visit sagaftrastrike.org for the latest news, picket lines, and events near you. Our strike can become the catalyst for a historic culture change in all industries, whereby making money and doing the right thing on behalf of workers are no longer mutually exclusive of each other, but go hand in hand, redefining the meaning of success. So that was the press release from SAG AFTRA. Just wanted to provide folks with some kind of update on the strike that wasn't just, hey, you've been inconvenienced because such and such show won't be in production. So that's coming directly from the website, directly from their newsroom. And finally, for tonight, our final bit of news is coming from Starbucks workers and the Starbucks struggle. What's going on there, Brian?
All right, Rick. Yes, we have been continued all the time to be inspired by the courageous Starbucks workers who are on the move in hundreds of stores across this country. And this week, there will be bargaining from August 11th to August 17th at the Seattle Reserve Roastery. And there's reports on the Starbucks Facebook page that, quote, these Starbucks workers have been waiting patiently for the company to bargain for a contract in good faith, yet the company is still refusing to negotiate. Every day Starbucks doesn't show up, we will be streaming live on Twitch to outline a core tenet of our demands and leaving an empty seat for Starbucks to start the bargaining process. This isn't just about one store, it's about all stores. Seattle is Starbucks' hometown, and we won't rest until they know that Seattle is a union town, end quote. So this week, if you go to the Facebook page, there's a variety of information where when this is being live streamed this week, supporters can share out that information, and there will be a shop. They're setting up shop, the Starbucks workers, right in front of the flagship Seattle Roastery every day this coming week from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And every day Starbucks chooses to not come out in good faith, we'll be streaming from the table to talk about our proposals and have some fun. So just to, again, that they're supposed to be bargaining Starbucks, but they've refused to do it. So the Starbucks workers are going to sit outside in front of the store this coming week from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and show the world that they are, in fact, the workers ready to bargain, but Starbucks is not. And they say, the Starbucks Workers United, that we're calling your bluff, Starbucks. It's time to negotiate with your workers. If Starbucks doesn't want to come to the table, we will bring the table to them, end quote. Right on. All power to these Starbucks workers. And we send them all of our solidarity here at We Rise Fighting and all these workers in motion we talked about on the podcast tonight.
Yep.
And again, listeners, we are not just reporting on these events. We are on the streets. We are on the picket lines. We are in battle. We are union members ourselves. And we are in support of all the union struggles that we mentioned on this show and many more have taken place across the country, and a variety of them, of course, happening across the world, as we've reported on previously in France and elsewhere. All right, Rick, solidarity forever.
Solidarity forever. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As we've mentioned before, we try to come at you every single week the best that we can. We encourage you to subscribe, like, share, talk about whatever you'd like to do just to stay in the loop, stay informed with us. We're going to come back at you soon with more news. We're also trying to line up some interviews with striking workers. There's always a lot to be learned from workers who are on strike. So hopefully we'll bring you that in the near future. Also, a shout out to Mercury Cafe workers here in Denver who are in the process of getting union recognition and hopefully negotiating their first contract. Shout out to them. I managed to show up and show a little bit of solidarity on Friday evening at the Mercury Cafe. That's a very special place for me as an artist here in Denver, as the Mercury Cafe has, offered me the stage many times and the microphone many times. So solidarity to those Mercury Cafe workers. We'll be back to you next week. Have a good one, everyone. Solidarity and love to all.